Organizers say millions of people around the country showed up for the No Kings protest this past weekend. The protests were a stark counter to President Trump's military parade. Trump's team say 250,000 people showed up to his parade, but the AP reports that it was far less likely than that.
Republicans, however, weren't the only politicians being booed. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman was jeered at when protesters dropped his name at a rally in his home state. Let's watch.
We're looking to the leaders who will fight for us, because even today there are folks among the Democratic Party who think we should roll over and play dead. Anyone seen John Fetterman here today? We're not looking to politicians to save us because we have been disappointed before we are looking to each other.
It all comes as millions of Americans took to the streets this weekend to sound off on President Trump and his 2-hour-long $45 million military parade. And the, quote, No Kings protest organizers say the movement was the biggest single-day anti-President Trump protest during his second term.
Protests were reportedly mostly peaceful, but one person was critically injured in Salt Lake City, Utah, when a gunman opened fire on thousands of protesters. He was pronounced dead yesterday evening. Police say a man also intentionally drove into protesters in Virginia.
Social media users lauded the protest. Left-leaning political commentator Ed Krastenstein writes, quote, "You've got to admit, MAGA, 4 million people never showed up to protest and march against the presidency of Joe Biden. America has a Trump problem, and they showed it with this No Kings protest yesterday."
Meanwhile, others were quick to call out Democrats. Self-proclaimed Reformed Democrat Lori Ann writes the Democrats should stop acting like they're the kings. No Kings rallies.
You know what? I love that the No Kings organizers decided not to do this in Washington, D.C., especially because we know that if President Trump decides to escalate tensions with protesters, that it would happen immediately. And there was a stark opposition to what we saw in D.C. to around the rest of the country, showing that there is still a wide variety of people that disagree with a lot of his policies. So if we break down and look at what No Kings means, it's simply just saying, and I know he laughed it off when he was asked about it, like, I'm obviously not a king, I would get a lot more stuff done. But, you know, he's done things that are feeling king-like. So having Doge in place to just make decisions and not codifying any of those laws that the country would like to see, whether you want to cut spending or not, that is king-like. Skipping over Congress and signing multiple and the most, I think, executive orders in the first few days of any president is acting king-like. Making firm decisions for the country immediately, like skipping over mayor and governor in LA in order to make decisions for what most people think didn't deserve military action at that early stage when he sent the military into, or Marines into LA, is king-like. And so these are all things that people are saying, we don't want a king, we didn't nominate a king, we're in a democratic nation, can we please act like it and have conversations with leadership across the board, follow the 3 chains of command in government, and talk to Congress before we make major decisions that affect all of us.
I mean, if signing or proclaiming too many executive orders is king-like behavior, then Trump is like our 20th consecutive king. In reality, while I think executive orders are not a good way to govern, I agree with you, but Trump is hardly the first person to do that. I felt that way about Joe Biden and Barack Obama and George W. Bush and Bill Clinton and George H.W. Bush and Ronald Reagan, and we can go back, Carter. I can go back literally backwards through every single president that I can recall. In reality, there was 0 kings. There's 0 kings now, so good job, No Kings people. There's still no kings.
What do you say about the fact that there were millions of people at No Kings protests around the country, and a number that's being argued by the AP of 250,000 in D.C. that's not even, I mean, the pictures don't lie. What do you say that there's more people that agree that they don't want?
There's more people in the rest of the country than there are in D.C., so I don't know,
but even
really
local protesters, I think they were bigger than the one in D.C., just by photos alone. Come on, they had it from big to small towns. I mean,
I can't judge it based on photos taken by the mainstream media that want to disparage and make it look like
been in town
the celebration of our glorious nation's military that no one attended. They want to make it look boring and drab and dull, and they probably find a crying child and a sad puppy or whatever to represent it, whereas it's just all the good posters. You don't see any of the craziness at the Nose Kings rally. I don't know. I don't know what it was exactly like. I'm wary of just taking the media's portrayal.
Well, we know that mainstream media photos affect President Trump. We know that he got riled up on when any photos posted about the attendee number, and if you see a real photo, he says that's not true. He's argued with actual photos before. So we know that this should be something that he should respond to, since there's so many people in the country that he leads, right? He's the president of all people, have an issue and feel like he's acting king-like. He shouldn't laugh in their faces when he's being interviewed by a member of the press and say, if I was a king, he should respond. He should bring people to the table, have dialogue about it. Like, people are uncomfortable with some of the decisions that he's making that have directly affected people. Now, whether people, like, for example, get their jobs back that were fired because we needed to cut federal spending, we'll see. But on the same day that we're saying no kings and you made these decisions, like, as far as firing government workers.
Not
no,
behavior.
But he also spent tons of government money this weekend. So the no kings protest is like, okay, if it's in favor of you, go for it. If not in favor of Americans, then also go for it.
There's not a right to be a government employee. You're not entitled to draw a salary supported by the taxpayers.
You're not, but also there's a way to handle Americans, since America's first, right? That's what we talked about in your intro. It's not putting people first when you're spending tons on your birthday party, but can't give people a chance to leave their job respectfully that have been working at places for years.
What else do I have to say on this? Look, people are free to protest. I welcome protest. It's First Amendment protected activity. I have no problem with it. I am also against authoritarianism. There are things Trump does that I dislike. Firing government employees is not one of them, certainly. I would say the answer to, if you don't like how, king-like is not the way I would describe it, but how much policy is being done solely by the executive and then it is being checked by the judiciary, the answer to that is what our founders intended, which is for Congress to play a much more active role in our government as the shapers and crafters of policy. That is a bipartisan failing that our Congress doesn't want to do.
Yes, so I agree. Congress needs a lot of work, but also Trump has actively skipped over requests and judgments by the Supreme Court, like bringing back Abrego Garcia.
He brought him back. He's back.
No, he said it wasn't up to him.
He got back.
He still was going to ignore the Supreme Court.
No,
that's king-like. No, he said they decide to do it. That had nothing to do with me, basically. Well, and so, yes, everyone else followed the rules of the Supreme Court.
Under the jurisdiction of another, he was in another country's jail. We did what we could to get him back, and we got it back.
The third branch of government, he's being...
Okay, I don't think he was obligated to reorient our entire foreign policy about kidnapping one man from his home country.
What's
but
the
we
Supreme
got him
Court
back,
for then?
so
They made a ruling.
I hope, and we got him back, so
okay, but not
resolved.
Okay, we'll talk about this more.
Well, in fact, we will be talking about Trump's deportation agenda, which he is taking to the bluest cities in America. That's coming up next.